AI overload in hospitality right now, it's crazy. Eye-watering data points, a plethora of shiny tools, and a ton of confusion. So I've got Craig Carbonniere here from Milestone to help navigate all these choppy waters to talk about the hotel AI actually recommends. Welcome back to the Instinct Show, Craig.
Awesome. Excited to be back. Thanks for having me, Cory. Looking forward to the conversation.
Right on. So let's jump right in. So, what does AI discoverability mean for hotels today?
Sure. At simplest form, and if I just define what that is for everyone, right? It's the act of appearing on these large language models, things like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, all these new AI platforms that are rolling out. But I think fundamentally, what it's providing us with is a shift in how we've marketed hotels. Typically, we looked at maybe the more traditional channels for getting our message out. Given the fact that these are a new set of channels, it's an exciting new opportunity. I know a lot of hotels are excited about the opportunity that this represents. And just like you said, Cory, it's every single conversation is about AI and how do they benefit from it.
Indeed. And we're seeing a huge shift on the group sales side because, as Craig, traditionally the industry has relied on a lot of third-party platforms, Cvent, Meetings Broker, a lot of others that are very helpful. But we're seeing this huge shift because now planners can use these shiny tools to do a lot of their short listing themselves. And so discoverability and recommendation for those that are planning, in particular, also these non-professional planners, the executive assistants, admins, they're going straight to these tools. They don't necessarily even have access to some of the other professional tools. So that's why we think that this shift is tremendously large, perhaps one of the biggest in the industry.
I would totally agree. And I think what's driving that too is if we step back, and these tools are making our lives so much easier.
Oh my God.
Whether you're using them for business or personal reasons, the efficiency these things are bringing us, it's no surprise why they're ramping up so quickly. And we have some data to back that. But to your point, this is one of the biggest and quickest ramp ups we've seen in this space. It's exciting.
Quickest indeed, but I think there's also a lot of analysis paralysis out there.
Totally.
And that's where we started with the whole confusion. And we always say when confused, you lose. So that's part of this is hopefully we can cut through some of that because I think there's so much out there right now. Hoteliers are not exactly sure which way to turn because every week there's something new and we were going to go in this direction, but oh, wait a minute, this looks shinier and newer. Maybe we should hold off because this looks like even a better solution. Can you share an example with us on the impact you're seeing in AI search visibility or search in hospitality?
That's such a good point too, Cory, is the paralysis by analysis. There's very little actual data of how these tools are used within the hospitality industry, how brands are being discovered. So I've been fortunate enough to work with our team at Milestone to start to collect that data and share it with the industry. So if you wouldn't mind, let me actually share some of that. I think
visuals, man. You're talking to an art guy here, so I'm always down with the visuals.
So we've been tracking this now for some time, right? The other fun fact, AI new, however, these tools are. So when we're measuring and tracking their production, we're looking at how much traffic are our clients getting from these different large language models. So we've been tracking ChatGPT and Google Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, and several others dating back to January 2024. And so this is a sample of 3,500 of the websites on our platform, a majority of those being hospitality. So this is truly an industry metric. But where you see that curve, right, that rather abrupt curve, right, We're talking about this happening within months, not
That's
years,
wild.
right? And the last time we saw this kind of pattern was really when smartphones were introduced, and so many guests were experiencing websites and visiting websites from their new iPhones. And then if you fast forward to today, more than half of any hotel's traffic is from someone on a mobile device. So we believe this is a significant kind of change and but new opportunity for hotels. If you break that down, I'll share another stat that our team put together.
Great.
So based on that data and that growth, what previously was a more traditional breakdown of channels in hospitality marketing, where, you know, majority of that were coming from organic, right? Someone just on Google's looking for hotels in San Diego, right? That's often how they found those websites. Where we believe the industry is headed is those searches will still happen. And it's important to understand that. But the shift that's going on is we believe almost half of that traffic will come to us from these new AI engines, right? So our biggest channel in terms of production, organic, will be split between AI search traffic and traditional organic searches. So again, talk about disruption, right? This is one of the biggest disruptors I think we've seen in the game.
That's wild. Those are fantastic data points, by the way, Craig. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. That's a huge sample set of over 3,000. So this isn't a small sample set. I'm still amazed on who are these people that are still clicking in links, right? Once you get a taste of the power of AI and just using a simple prompt on how we started this conversation on how much more thorough and efficient you can be on finding what you're looking for and adding
just presenting very similar insights to a hotel group earlier this week. Another stat that I just found so interesting. There was another company that put together research around a similar topic. They said that 63% of AI users who have used it before consistently use AI for trip planning. Every single time they'll continue to use it. If they've used it before, they'll continue to do it. And when we think about something as a channel worth on or prioritizing, I would definitely think that's it.
Absolutely. It's addictive. I get in these conversations all the time. I've been doing finance planning, insurance rate comparisons. I'm doing that all myself, where I used to have to call and talk to a salesperson and it's amazing how it's filled my life, not just in hospitality and for our clients, but for myself personally.
Absolutely. So, and just correction, sorry. It was 63% of AI users rely on it for most or every trip.
Wow.
So talk about consistency. Over half of AI users are coming back to it when planning every single trip. Incredible.
And that number's only going to continue to go up, right? It's wild. Now, granted, our data is not as rich as you're all at Milestone, but from a personal perspective, because we see all the direct inbound inquiries from group sales for our hotels, we're seeing anywhere between 20 and 30 of those inquiries when they do self-attribution. Those are coming from AI tools, ChatGPT being the most common, and we're seeing that trending up. So just again, on from the group side, a lot of these opportunities coming direct via the website and using these tools. And so this trend is only going to continue to go up. And obviously you and I are going to talk about this next question for you, by the way, is what's one action? If you were to talk to a hotel marketer today, Craig, you would say, here's what you could do with the least amount of effort to get the most amount of impact today.
100%. So we did this exercise again in this same workshop. We're talking about AI and real world solutions to better preparing their hotels for kind of this shift. The one thing that we all aligned on is there's a lack of visibility in terms of what people are searching How is AI collecting the right answers? And so a similar or a very simple action, right? And I've done this countless times is again, right? I'm a wedding planner looking for a resort in San Diego. What would you recommend? And it gives you a list, right? List 1 through 5, right? And oftentimes your hotel's not number 1. And if you're curious, right? If you're really leaning into that curiosity, you'll follow up that question with, hey, my resort has some really good options. Why did you recommend XYZ resort over mine? It's going to tell you exactly why. Oh, they offer this. They have this kind of amenity. And you'll find that did a prompt, but you never looked at it in that way. So you have these really cool, attractive offerings, but you've never talked about them, right? And very simple task. Why are you, Mr. Miss ChatGPT, why are you recommending this option over this one? So whether you're a hotel sales director, whether you're a B2B marketer, the insights are fascinating, right? And using those as an input into your strategy, I think it's really starting to pull back the onion and get further into how these things are using that content.
That was fantastic and a perfect segue into my recommendation, by the way.
Sweet.
So our number 1 tip on what you just mentioned on the event side is creating a detailed meetings and events FAQ page. Based on what you just asked, you were asking the questions on why, based on everything from AV, food minimums, flexible your spaces, but also adding team building elements. And here's one of the huge things that many hotels are missing out on. And we learned this exactly from what you were mentioning is the concept of EAT, E-E-A-T, experience, expert trustworthiness, and authoritativeness. Those aren't amenities. Those are built from trust signals built by humans. Speaking of a visual, I've got one thing here I wanted to share with you in terms of the shift in moving away from product-centric to people-centric selling. And what does that mean? Is that traditionally it was, let's show the empty meeting space with the chairs, the AV setup, to how can we use this space to transform our event into something that's an outcome? So using the product as ultimately is the solution. And that's where the salesperson or convention services or the team gets involved. And that's where that whole notion of the trust comes into play, where it's the team member using the product to help build that sense of trust with the prospect, which I think is, again, a huge shift in that where it's always been traditionally in that space. So bringing out your sales team, positioning them front and center as the authority at your property that can help round that out and adding those elements to a FAQ page. So my number 1 tip is to start with that deep FAQs and not surface level FAQs. How do you get to a hotel? How many guest rooms do you have? But deep FAQs, like even to capture those non-professional planners, what is attrition? I didn't know for a long time what that meant. So adding those that are going to build trust across those platforms and adding to what you had mentioned, the questions on why you're not seen in search, and then building those into your FAQ page. So how about that? We didn't even rehearse that.
Great suggestion. Perfect.
All right. To wrap this out, been a great conversation, by the way. Why will be recommended more than simply being found?
So I think the example that we had given previously is just one of many examples, right? And you touched on it, right? Your event planners, your guests are asking a ton of questions, right? Hopefully they're asking your team, but what we're finding more times than not, they're now asking these tools, these LLMs, because they're so easy to get information. What previously took months of research they're getting it now within minutes, right? And I feel like a huge blind spot for most of us, both in the industry and in some cases slightly outside of it, is what is being asked in these tools, right? We gave the one example of obviously something that I was interested in, recommending a particular property, but I'm just one person, right? So I think going forward, what the industry should value is those tools that deliver insights into what's being asked and really what can I do about it. You gave a great recommendation. Create an FAQ page. Maybe it's creating a press release or an email blast, right? The tools to actually connect that flywheel. I know it's something that we're really excited about here at Milestone, working on that and building that out for our clients. But I see, and what I would explore is how can we connect that journey as much as possible? It starts with understanding what's being asked. And then what I'm a firm believer in is taking action. Create that event planner FAQ page, create that blog article, create that Instagram post. But my fear is we're not gaining the insights yet. I have some ideas. Feel free to reach out, but I'm looking forward to how the industry responds to this opportunity. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Definitely. What I'm finding that is the reason why I think being recommended over just simply awareness or being found is the concept of trust and no waiting. Because traditionally, because you are a seasoned hotelier in your former life, the most of the industry is reliant on the traditional RFPs. You get inbound RFPs, the planners have to wait. And because Amazon, they've spoiled us, no one wants to wait anymore. And now we're finding that planners and non-professional planners can use these tools, do an end around all of this. But when you're getting recommended, there's a sense of, wow, it's almost like a curated reviews. They're giving me based on that. And that is incredibly powerful because when they serves up maybe 5 recommendations, there's a perception there that they recommend these based on something online, reviews, and a variety of others. That is a huge shift because it's taken a lot of the self-research possibilities when you serve that on a planner, because we want everything so easy. And now we get these recommendations based on that. Chat will also give you, we gave you these recommendations, pros and cons.
I love that too, Cory. And I could probably give a bonus. We had a GEO, generative engine optimization expert, speak to our team internally. And so he was working with a client. They're not in hospitality. They're in let's call it a sister industry. They sell products. And so he did a similar exercise to the one that I had suggested, right? Ask the follow-up question. Why did you recommend this over that? And so he had a client that is a food and beverage client. They sell beverages. And so I think the question that they asked ChatGPT was, tell me, where can I find this drink? And they're the distributor, right? They're the ones that actually manufacture it. But the answer gave them a recommendation that was not them. And so the simple act of asking why, he learned that, oh, it was just because you didn't have that product available. So then he was curious. He went down this rabbit hole. That, not to get too technical, the whole idea of structured data. So in addition to having the content, talking about the room type or the event space is one thing. Having all the different things listed out, I love that recommendation. And FAQs, that's another, right? But tying it back into some of the technical components that allow that information to surface. And I could talk about that for days. I won't bore your audience. But making sure all those things are connected. It's not one solution. Yeah, of course, it's about addressing the content gap. But then it's about, okay, how do we build on that? How do we make it accessible both for our guests or our consumers, as well as these AI engines? I think we have some really good thoughts on that. You can follow us for a lot more information, but thought it was quite interesting.
Beautiful. Yeah, you're right. And consistency. And I know you talked about schema. We won't get into the schema part, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
Now, it is important, Craig, that I do this caveat is when you're doing self-awareness and asking questions and recommendations, you want to make sure when you do a prompt, though, is that you clean the memory, you clean the slate, because that was a revelation that I found is that when it's giving you recommendations, when you're asking it a question, not only is it sourcing obviously external signals, it's parsing it with your personal bias. I'm like, this recommendation is next level because not only is it just giving me surface level recommendations, it knows me. It knows my vibe. It knows my music. It knows I like funky. It's going to use those as the intent signals when it gives these recommendations. So I always try to say, hey, if you're going to do some of your self-discovery on your own company, which I think is very important, make sure you start with a clean slate because chat loves to placate you, right? And say all the great things and how great you are. And hey, Cory, you're a great father. You listen, your music's the best ever. You're a fast motocross rider. I'm like, yeah, it's great for your ego, but oftentimes not super productive. So I wanted to make sure I added that in there as well.
I feel the same way as them. You're brilliant, Cory. And yeah, it's such a good point because I know even when we're building out products for GEO and we have now several, that biased is making sure like we're taking that out of the equation as much as possible to discover a new consumer, a new guest, making sure that the messaging is aligned with the intent. Again, I really encourage the industry to seek out solutions that will help them uncover, some of those opportunities and maybe be more effective in this kind of changing space.
Stuff, man. I could sit here and talk with you all day on a Friday, but we're rounding out a half an hour here. I knew this would go long, and hey, I love it. This is awesome. So before we break, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're up to and how to find you, by the way?
Great. Yeah. Craig, I have a very long last name, Carbonniere. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please give my friend Cory a follow before you follow me.
Dude.
You won't regret it. But not far behind, you'll find me. Feel free to connect with me. Would love to continue this discussion. I'm often posting about these topics. As I mentioned before, I also speak in various forums about it. Looking forward to the conversation. The company that I represent is Milestone Inc. You can visit our website anytime, milestoneinternet.com. We have a lot of free resources, webinars, ebooks, white papers. You'll find a long library of our latest GEO and AI search resources. Use those to benefit.
Wonderful. Hey, by the way, I forgot to note this. Craig, you're the very, very first person that I heard talk about AI in hospitality. So I'm going to give kudos to you. In fact, you had some image discovery exercises you did way back when. So immediately when I wanted to go back on the subject, I'm like, I got to invite Craig back on. So I appreciate your time, man. And
my pleasure.
Again, brother.
My pleasure. Yeah, this is a fun topic. 2016, it was when we first started talking about AI.
Oh.
We were talking about it to the hospitality industry. It was a presentation with hoteliers in California, actually. But fast forward to today, can you imagine? It's part of every conversation.
Man, can you imagine what's going to happen when we reconnect a year from now? Holy man.
I'm excited, right? It's an exciting place to be, exciting stage for our industry. I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
I can't wait for us to have a follow-up conversation. And until then, brother, have a great weekend and we'll chat with you soon. Thanks again, man.
Thanks.